So it's that time of the year again. By this time tomorrow, on the day I'm recording this, it'll be July 1st. That means we're halfway through 2023 as a whole. And I think now's the perfect time to talk about some of the best and worst movies that we've gotten so far this year in 2023. And all things considered, for the last 6 months, there's been a lot of really good movies. There has not been a whole lot of terrible movies. In fact, when I put this list together of my best and worst films, I only had about 5 movies that I would definitely put on a worst of the year list. But other than that, most of the stuff that's not on the best of the year list is just stuff that was passable, stuff that's not really all that memorable. I'm not going to remember it anytime soon. So, but the 5 films in the worst movies thing, I'm definitely more than likely going to be talking about it again at the end of December when we're talking about the best and worst overall films of the year. Like I said, there hasn't been a whole lot of really terrible movies. There's been some films that have not been as good, but at the same time, there's been films that have been fun to watch, like Shazam! Fury of the Gods, The Little Mermaid, No Hard Feelings. All had flaws to them, but at the same time, there was still a lot about those films I really liked about it. And those are my honorable mentions for now, by the way, of the best movies of the year so far. So they're not going to be obviously in the main top 10 list. In fact, some of the movies that are going to be in my top 10 list that I'm going to mention here will more than likely be in the honorable mentions as the year goes on. And of course, the worst movies will get bigger and bigger. But I'm pretty much wasting time here. So this is not what you want to hear. You want to hear me talk about my thoughts on the best and worst movies of 2023 so far, and that is the subject of this special video presentation here on the Reviewing Network. So let's get right to it. Let's start off with the good stuff first before we get into the worst of the worst. So let's go ahead and start off by talking about my top 10 favorite movies of 2023 so far. And as per usual, I have not seen every movie in 2023. These are just the films that I've seen, films that I've talked about here on the channel and also on the website as well, and some films that you may not have, I've not gotten a full chance to talk about yet, but I did want to mention them because some of them are very noteworthy, and a lot to get to here. So like I said, we're starting off with the best movies of 2023 so far, so let's go ahead and get right to it. And we're going to start off with, of course, number 10 on my list, which is Chang Can Dunk. This is the Disney Plus sports drama. It's an underage coming-of-age story involving high school basketball and the title character's determination to overcome expectations. You follow this 16-year-old Asian-American high school student in the marching band who bets the school basketball star that he can dunk by homecoming. And the bet leads to Chang going on this quest to find the hopes that he needs to dunk in order to impress his crush, Christy, and finally gain the attention and respect of his high school peers. But before he can rise up and truly throw one down, he'll have to re-examine everything he knows about himself, his friendships, and his family. I just saw this one recently, and I just did this review for it recently on the site. It's a surprisingly charming and quietly known film. This movie did not get a whole lot of attention when it came out on Disney Plus back in March, and it kind of just went by the wayside. It's a well-made coming-of-age story. Movies like this don't deserve to get dumped onto Disney Plus. I feel like this should have been seen on a big screen. We need more smaller films like this on a big screen. It's great to have the blockbusters and all, but sometimes the smaller films are really, really worth seeing on a huge theater screen. This is a really good film. I like the lead actor in here, Blum Lee. He leads a really good cast of relative unknowns in this film. And they were all very good as well here. I think the story is well done, too. It has some nice messages, gets a lot of good emotional moments. It's a warm-hearted and really entertaining film that should be definitely getting a lot more attention. Definitely check it out. Chang Can Dunk. It's on Disney Plus. I'd highly recommend checking it out. Number 9 on the list is Elemental, and I'm going to be putting the video reviews that I do for these movies in my top 10 best and worst in the corner, so you can go check out my full reviews of those. But this is Disney and Pixar's latest film. Did not premiere to the strongest box office numbers, but in the weeks since it's been released, it has stabilized a little bit, so it's going to have some legs, considering there's not a whole lot of family film competition coming up for it over the next couple of weeks. But I'm really glad I got to see this movie this weekend. This was the first thing I wanted to see on the weekend of June 16th, other than that other movie, which we'll get to later on, certainly. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, wait till we get to the worst of the year list. But Elemental, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was a fun, well-made animated film, a great little romantic comedy between these two leading characters, Ember and Wade. I thought their voice acting overall was really good. I thought the comedy overall was good, but not great. But the animation overall, I think, really strikes out the most. I think this is a very good movie that continues into Pixar's slice of life style of films that they've been doing all the way since Onward, like Onward, Soul, Luca, Turning Red, and now this film. these have been really good movies. They haven't gotten the biggest box office numbers out. These, of course, because of the pandemic and some shady business practices of Disney during the Chapek era, but I digress. But this film really is well done. It's not one of Pixar's best movies overall, but I do really like it a lot. I think it has a lot of heart to it, a lot of good animation overall, a good enough story that keeps it going all the way through. I can't recommend this one enough. I hope this film continues to have legs as it grows over the next couple of weeks and months. It's a really damn good movie. Elemental, I can't recommend it enough. Number 8 on my list, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which is a little bit of a reprieve for the Marvel Cinematic Universe after Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania was a major mixed misfire. James Gunn, in his swan song at the MCU before he goes on to the DCEU, gives the story that he started a very good, proper send-off. The film is basically... We're learning about Rocket Raccoon a lot in this film, and I think the film does a very good job of keeping you invested in that backstory he has, because it's a very well-made backstory. It's a great film overall. I think it does a fantastic job of bringing these characters back together once again, and it really surprises you with the way it moves things. Like, you think you're going to see things that you've seen over and over again. Like, you think that we're going to have to rebuild the relationship between Star-Lord and Gamora, but no, they actually do it in a way that actually does work very well here and doesn't feel like it's doing the same thing over and over again. It's definitely not the best of the series, but I put this in the same category of in the annals of something like the Back to the Future trilogy and the How to Train Your Dragon trilogy. The third installment is definitely not as good as the previous installments, but they deliver, especially on an emotional level, as finales. Like, you see the end of the DeLorean, Back to the Future Part 3, you see the end of the relationship between Hiccup and Toothless in How to Train Your Dragon, and you see the Guardians going on their separate ways, and they do a very good job of handling the emotional levels in here. And like I said, it gave the MCU a little bit of a reprieve, a little bit of a break after some lackluster films so far since they got back from the pandemic. But this is a really entertaining film. I think it does a great job of serving as a finale to the Guardians of the Galaxy, and serves as a great swan song to James Gunn, who's going to hopefully bring this same kind of effort into the films that he'll do at the DCEU, the DC Studios, as he becomes the co-head of this company. I'm really looking forward to see what he does there. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is a fantastic trilogy. The Guardians of the Galaxy as a whole is a fantastic trilogy. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 perfectly ends it on a very good note. Definitely not the strongest of the three, but I still recommend it. It's a fantastic film. Number 7 is John Wick Chapter 4, and talk about a series that somehow keeps getting better and better with each passing film. I mean, it's amazing that they're still able to up the ante and make a film that's even better than the previous film, because each of these films, like I said, have gotten better and better and better, and John Wick Chapter 4, I think, is the strongest one of the series so far. I think it is a very entertaining film. Keanu Reeves, once again, shines as John Wick here. The action sequences are top-notch. The storytelling is really well done. There's a lot of great characters in here, a lot of great visuals overall. I mean, like I said, man, this might honestly be setting itself up as one of the greatest action film franchises of all time. This is a series of movies that gets better and better with each passing film. I am glad that they're taking a break from this for now. The next one, I think, is going to be a spin-off film with Ana de Armas, and I think John Wick's going to be in that one, but it's not an official sequel. Honestly, if they wanted to stop here, I think that they should do that, because they have it on a good note right now, and it's going to be really tough to keep this going throughout the course of each film coming out, because I'm pretty sure they're going to try to make another one down the road. I think they are developing another one, but John Wick Chapter 4, man, is just such an amazing film. It's an amazing continuation of the story that gets better and better with each passing film. I can't recommend it enough. And John Wick Chapter 4, man. John Wick Chapter 4. Number 6, the Super Mario Brothers movie. Who would have guessed that not only would Illumination be behind a really damn good video game movie, of course based off of probably the most popular video game character of all time, but it would also be done by the same guys who did Teen Titans Go. Like, man, this was a ton of fun. I know it got a lot of bad reviews for critics. Bad reviews may be an understatement. It got a mixed reception, but what did those people really expect from a movie like this? I mean, this Super Mario Brothers movie really did not have to do a whole lot to really show what it could be, what the Super Mario Brothers universe could be like in film form. I think Illumination did a fantastic job on this. You could tell that they put a lot of effort into it, and they said, we cannot do the same thing that we've been doing with the Despicable Me movies and the Sing films and the Secret Life of Pets films. I've not been the biggest overall fan of Illumination. I don't think that I'm not a huge Despicable Me fan. I did like The Secret Life of Pets, as well as the Grinch, the Sing movies as well, but this is easily the best movie they've ever done. I mean, Chris Pratt and Charlie Day surprisingly worked incredibly well as Mario and Luigi. Well, Charlie Day, I think a lot of us expected him to be really good, but Chris Pratt, man, he was incredible as Mario. I thought he was a lot of fun. The voice casting overall was great. The homages to the game and the animation, the way it moves around, the music is great. It's just a good, fun ride. This is a good, fun experience. It's not an incredible story-driven film, but for the hour and a half that they had, I had a time of my life with this movie. This is a film I've watched on repeat several times since it's come out, man. Just a phenomenal film. I can't recommend this one enough. The Super Mario Brothers movie, amazing, amazing film. Moving on to number 5, Cocaine Bear. It's a bear that does cocaine. I mean, what else can you really expect from this movie? But it's a really good, fun time. It's dark, it's in your face, it's gonzo over the top, it's hilarious. It's a little bit terrifying too. The visual effect of that bear is just works amazingly well. And for Elizabeth Banks, it's a nice return to form for her as a director, because she showed a lot of promise with Pitch Perfect 2, and then she did the Charlie's Angels reboot, which was not that great. And here she comes back again with this film, and this is really the best thing she's done as a director, and I'm really excited to see where she goes from there. This is an amazingly good, fun ride. It's an insane film. It's all in your face. It's gonzo. It's over the top. It's Cocaine Bear. It's a bear that does cocaine. I mean, what else more do I really need to say about it? It's a great film. Number 4 on my list is Tetris, and this is another movie that really makes me want to get Apple TV, because, you know, I watch all these Apple TV originals during these free trial periods they have, and this is another one where it really makes me want to get it more and more, and I think I'm close enough where I want to do it. I mean, a movie like this is pretty amazing. Taron Egerton once again delivers a very strong performance in here. He plays Hank Rogers. Of course, this is the story behind the true events around the race to license and patent the video game Tetris from Russia in the late 1980s during the Cold War. He's great in this film, and he's been really one of my favorite actors to go to. He shows his commitment to these roles. He's got a strong cast around him to work around. The movie has this unique visual style to it that I was really not expecting for it. There's times where you'll see the scene go to this 8-bit style, a la the original Tetris, and the way they handle these scenes are very effective. I mean, the music is great. It's 1980s music. Of course I'm going to love it. And when you play the final countdown, it's like you can have me. I'm yours. You've sucked me in, and I'm 100% all in. Tetris takes the story of how it came to America and turns it into a surprisingly amazing and fun thrill ride. A great direction overall, great visual style, great acting, great music. It's an all-around winner. It's one of the year's best films. Number 3 is a film you've probably never even heard of. It's a film that's on Hulu. It's a film called Rye Lane. It's a film that I discovered a couple months after it came out. I was looking through some films that I wanted to take a look at, and this movie really came to mind. You have the story of these two people named Yas and Dom, who are two 20-somethings both reeling from bad breakups. They connect over the course of an eventful day in South London. They help each other deal with their nightmare exes and potentially restoring their faith in romances. And these are the type of movies I love, man. Films like the Before Sunrise trilogy, 500 Days of Summer, Southside with You, where you follow two strangers who end up going on this incredible adventure where they eventually will get together and be a couple when it's all said and done. And this is one of those ones that I think is well worthy of being added to the group. Vivian Oparah and David Johnson have great chemistry working off each other. The film does a wonderful job of building the relationship while not going through the same generic storyline we've seen in movies like this over and over again. It creates a fresh spin on that with a nice mix of comedic and dramatic moments and a unique style that shows a lot of promise with this director named Rain Alan Miller, who I think does a very good job here. Premiered without a whole lot of attention on Hulu, but I would highly recommend checking it out. It definitely fits the mold of the Before trilogy and Southside with You, and it shines on so many levels that even if you're not the biggest rom-com fan, you can still find a lot to really admire about it. It's a very underrated film. Not a lot of people know about it. Hopefully this will help build it in the months and years to come. Rye Lane, can't recommend it enough. Definitely check it out. Coming in at number 2, Creed 3, a film that I really did not think was going to be able to top whatever was coming out in 2023, because this movie was such an amazing ride. I mean, this is a film that, of course, is the third installment of the Creed series. It's the first one in the Rocky universe to not focus on Rocky. This is all the story of Adonis Creed, and Michael B. Jordan not only shines once again as an actor in here, but he shows his potential to become a really damn good filmmaker, not just as an actor, but also a writer, producer, director. I mean, this is his first directorial effort, and to come out swinging like this, no pun intended, I mean, he really shows his potential as a great filmmaker in the future. Jonathan Majors is really good in the film too. I hope these allegations about him are not true, and I hope that he comes out of this without being considered, without being the next guy we cancel because of something he did in the past. But like, I mean, he really is one of my favorite actors right now, and that's why I'm so saddened to hear that he's currently going through these allegations right now with him, the abuse allegations he's going through right now. I hope it's not true, because man, this guy has been one of the best rising actors I've seen in a long time, and this movie shows why. He plays a great formidable foe to Adonis Creed, but you can also see where he's coming from in the storyline that goes through here. And when these two fight at the end of the film, it's one of the best fighting sequences you'll ever see in a movie. Like, you could tell that Michael B. Jordan got the inspiration from anime, and it still made me think that if they ever want to make that live-action Akira movie, Michael B. Jordan may be the guy to do it, because he really is showing a lot of promise as a filmmaker here. I hope that I hope that he gets to do more films that branch out his potential. The film overall is just a ton of fun. It's the best of the Creed films. It's a great movie. The acting is great. The storytelling is great. The visual is great. It's an amazing film. It was one of the big surprises of the year. Like, I really was hoping to like it. I didn't think I'd love it as much as I did now. Now I do, because it's the best of the Creed films, no question about it. And I really did think that no other movie was going to be able to top it. But then we have the #1 movie that did just that. That film, of course, is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And man, did this film have so many levels that it had to climb to make sure that it made for an entertaining film. They went above and beyond for this film. I mean, first of all, you have a sequel to one of my favorite movies of all time, Across the Spider-Verse. You have a film that's taken 4 years to make, and you have a lot of high expectations for this. You've built up the marketing for this so much. The previews have looked incredible. The storytelling looks amazing. The animation overall looks amazing. And not only did they exceed a lot of my expectations, but they really jumped past my expectations for this. I can't remember how much I enjoyed a movie as much as I did Across the Spider-Verse. This is an amazing film, and I'm still debating whether or not this is right up there with Into the Spider-Verse as one of my favorite movies of all time, because they really did an incredible job to take this above and beyond. The animation, like I said, fantastic. Their abilities to combine all these different forms of animation and even live action, top notch. They expand the story of these characters a lot. Like, I love how Miles' parents get a bigger story in this film. I love how Gwen Stacy's story gets a bigger backstory in here. You find out a lot about these characters, and it's all great acting overall. And it's strange because not a whole lot actually happens in this overall film. Like, it's really hard to think about that, but there is stuff that happens in here, but you forget that this is a 2-part film, and you really don't feel like that this is a long film. This is over 2 hours long. I never felt that. I felt like this movie was moving along so quickly, and the thrills are still there. The animation, like I said, is fantastic. It's just an amazing film. And the ending of this movie, the way they set this up, is just top notch. I mean, I could not believe how much I really love this movie coming out of it. And still thinking about it to this very day. Like, it's one of the best achievements I've seen in a long, long time. I cannot recommend this movie enough. I'm really hoping that we get to see this third film next year. I hope there aren't any delays from it, because I know this one took a lot out of these people that made this film. But I really hope they stick the landing big time, because now they have even bigger shoes to fill. They got to finish this one on a high note, and one hopes that that's going to be the case. But man, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is going to be a really, really hard film to beat as the best movie of the year. I mean, I said that about Creed 3, but this is definitely proof that this is going to be incredibly hard to top. I mean, what more do I gotta say, man? Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, it's the best movie of 2023 so far, and it's gonna take a Christmas miracle to have a film come out to surpass that. I mean, such an amazing, amazing film. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, my favorite film of 2023 so far. So those are the best movies of 2023 so far, and now let's get to the one that you really want to see. These are usually the ones that are more fun to talk about, really, honestly. Looking back at the 10 worst movies of 2023, but of course we're not doing the top 10, we're doing the top 5 worst movies, because I only seen 5 movies that would definitely make this list. So here we go. The top 5 worst movies of 2023 so far, at least according to me. Number 5 on the list, The Drop. And no, we're not talking about the incredibly underrated Tom Hardy, James Gandolfini film that came out about 10 years ago. No. I'd rather much talk about that than this film. No, we're talking about the black comedy that stars Anna Konkle and Jermaine Fowler. If you don't remember this is a Hulu movie, and it follows this couple, Lex and Manny, who run an artisanal bakery in Los Angeles. They make plans to start a family, but their plans are thrown into upheaval when, while at a tropical resort for a destination wedding, Lex accidentally drops their friend's baby. And that's all the film has. It's that one gimmick, and that's it. You spend an hour and a half with these people that you absolutely hate. You have no sympathy for them whatsoever and their problems, and they're not worth your time whatsoever. I hated this movie. This is abysmally bad. I mean, a great cast in this film. Jermaine Fowler, Jillian Bell, Utkarsh Ambuktar, Raman Theed, Aparna Nancherla, along with Mark and Jay Duplass as the producing position, and this is the best you can do. This is cringe comedy that's absolutely worse. This is like watching that terrible TV series, The Slap, except somebody saw that and said, we can make a comedy out of this, and then they hire the worst writers possible to make that fit. You remember The Slap, right? The show where a kid gets slapped by one of the neighbor's parents, and the entire show is nothing about the questions, the moral questions, the morality questions about how parents should discipline their children. It's just like, nobody wants to watch this. Nobody wants to watch that type of a show, let alone a TV show, but a movie as well. Like I said, this is cringe comedy at its absolute worst. It's an abysmally unfunny mess of a film that wouldn't even have worked if they had gone with a TV show, let alone a film. It's an absolute misfire on so many levels. It is indeed one of the worst movies of the year, and really, you can see why this went straight to Hulu, because this is a mess. This is an abysmal mess of a film, and sadly, it's not the only Hulu movie that's on this particular list. Because as bad as The Drop is, White Man Can't Jump at number 4 is by far worse. Some people may see this as a double whammy for the director Callum Maddock, who also did the remake of House Party, which I saw the remake of House Party, and it's not a good movie, but it's not a bad movie either. It's definitely a film that it doesn't deserve to exist, but at least it had elements to it where I thought, okay, you guys had a right idea here, but the film overall just is a complete waste of time. You could say the same thing about White Man Can't Jump too. These are two 90s comedy classics that fit into the 90s and do not deserve to be remade for the 2020s. I mean, this is like remaking Valley Girl, which is strictly a 1980s film, and of course they did that with that terrible Valley Girl remake that came out in 2020. Like, why do you even bother with that? This is a modern remake of the iconic film, which sees Jack Harlow playing Jeremy, who's an injury-prone former basketball star, and Kamal, a has-been prodigy played by Sinqua Walls, who team up to take one final shot at living out their dreams. And the movie is just such a mess on so many levels. And there's a guy with a flamethrower in here too, for no reason whatsoever. It's just like, why is that scene in here? Like, why did you have to put that in there? You really put money into putting a guy with a flamethrower in here for no reason whatsoever. And it's just like, this movie is a mess of a film, and it has a great supporting cast in here. You know, Teyana Taylor, Laura Harrier from Spider-Man Homecoming, Vince Staples is in here, Lance Reddick. This was one of his last films he made before he died 2 months before the film came out. This is a mess of a film, and it's a shame because there's so much talent involved here. Even with the writers, Kenya Barris, the guy who made Blackish, Ron Shelton, the director of the original film, wrote the story for this. It's just like, how did this fall into an area where it fell into this? How did this movie become this? Like, really, there's no reason why this movie needed to be remade except White Man Can't Jump is a film that is a name, and instead of actually writing smart original material, we got to make a cheap cash grab remake. And this is the end result of it. This is a film that's so much of a disastrous mess. It's a mess on so many levels. Like, this is a film that is so not funny. It wastes a lot of money and talent on a story that does not make a whole lot of sense. And once again, pointless flamethrowers. Like, I still can't get over the fact that somebody saw this movie. They saw the script for this and said, you know what would be good here? Let's have one of the characters bring out a flamethrower. Because remember that great scene in White Man Can't Jump, the original, where somebody had a flamethrower? It's where somebody was talking and you thought, God, I wish there was a guy with a flamethrower in here so they can up the ante in terms of the suspense in this film. Just, I hate this movie. I really hate this movie. This was one that's sure more than likely going to be on the bottom 10 list for the year, man. Because this is such an insult to the original White Man Can't Jump. Stop remaking these classic movies. Like, if you're gonna remake anything, remake the bad movies. Remake the movies that made money, but they were seen as notoriously bad films. Well, then I was going to say remake Endless Love, but they already did that, and that film was a complete and total disaster of its own, but you get the idea here. Stop remaking these movies that don't need modern remakes. White Man Can't Jump did not need a modern remake, nor did House Party, but they did it anyway, and now we have two movies that one wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, but it wasn't as good either, but this one's definitely making the bottom 10 list for the year, that's for damn sure. And now let's get to the big guns. Number 3, Fast X. I am so done with the Fast and Furious series, man. Like, they have just emotionally and just overall have drained me from any enjoyment that I get from these films. These movies keep getting worse and worse and worse with every single film since Furious 7. Furious 7 should have been the stopping point. You gave Paul Walker a great send-off. There's nothing more you need to do with these characters. That's where the series should have ended. But nope, they kept going. We got movies that were basically rehashes of the sequel that came before them, and the novelty just isn't there anymore. It's not fun to watch these movies. Like, there's no redeemable qualities about these films whatsoever. It drains on you so fast with every single time that these movies come out. It's just like, it's amazing how these movies have just fallen off so quickly. And the only reason why they keep making them, I'm sorry, Vin Diesel has nothing else left in his tank. Like, anytime he tries to start a new franchise outside of the Fast and Furious films, and he wants to try to branch out from these, nobody goes to see him. It's just like Vin Diesel has now basically just said, the word is out there. I'm never going to do anything else with these Fast and Furious movies. In fact, I'm going to keep making these Fast and Furious movies. That this 2-part film that we're going to do is the finale. No, we're going to make that 3 parts. And I'm guaranteeing you, when the next one comes out, it's just like, we originally were going to do 2 parts, and then we decided on 3 parts. We're actually going to continue this going and going. We don't see this ending anytime soon. Like, it's what's going to happen, people. Vin Diesel literally has nothing else left in the tank in here, and they're just going to keep finding ways to bring all these big names in here. Like, do I really care that Jason Momoa, Brie Larson, and Pete Davidson are among the new people in here? Like, really? Do I really give a crap about any of this? I certainly don't anymore. Like, these movies, like I said, have completely drained me of any excitement whatsoever. Let's bring Rita Moreno in here. 2 movies this year she was in. Like, why do you gotta do this to her, man? Like, she just got back in the game after West Side Story, the remake. Like, why do you have to reduce her to such these ridiculous lows? And as if these movies were trying to piss me off anymore, Charlize Theron's back as Cypher, because, heaven forbid, she's such an extremely important character to the storyline. It's just like, oh, and Dwayne Johnson is back because that fake feud that he had with Vin Diesel is now officially over. I'm sorry, I refuse to believe that actually was a feud between those two. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It was something for a publicity push for this film, and he's back in here because his career is not what it used to be a year ago. So I don't know. Like I said, these movies have just drained me to the point where I'm just tired of it. I'm still probably going to see these movies, but my expectations aren't going to get any better. These movies keep getting worse and worse and worse with each film. And like I said, Furious 7 should have been the stopping point. You can do the spin-offs if you want to. Like, I liked Hobbs and Shaw. But Fate of the Furious, F9, and now this, I'm just over it, man. I'm just over it. And I think a lot of people are over it, too, because here in America, this film did not do well at the box office. I guess it did well overseas, so I guess that's the only way these films are going to keep going, as long as people overseas are stupid enough to actually pay to watch this crap. But quite frankly, I'm done with it. I'm just done with it. I had my fill with this film. This is not a good. This is a film that just pushed me off of the series for good. Fast X, I hated it so much. Number 2 on my list, 80 for Brady. Another movie with Rita Moreno wasting her talents on this film, but not only her. Lily Tomlin's wasting her talents in here. So is Jane Fonda. So is Sally Field. Even Tom Brady. Like, I don't hit. Look. I don't even want to say I hate Tom Brady because I just think he's overrated as an athlete. I have seen him in movies and TV shows where I thought, this guy has a good, charming personality. He can be very funny. Like Rob Gronkowski is also very funny and very talented. I've seen him in some stuff where he actually has made an impact and actually has become really good as an actor. But I'm sorry, man, this movie is just such a huge misfire on so many levels. This was not even a film. This is a film that tricks people into thinking that they're getting something that they're really not. You want to know why this movie was such a big hit that it was? Because it was a girls' night out movie. It was one of those films like the Sex and the City movies and Mamma Mia, where you go out with your gal pals, you go sit in the theater, you sneak in a bottle of Chardonnay or any kind of champagne, and you wear your fancy dresses, your fancy shoes, and all your friends are talking about your fancy dresses and your fancy shoes. And when you get home from the movie, and your husband's asking you, "Hey, how was the movie?" You're the one that's saying, you hear them saying, "Wait, did I see a movie?" That's this movie, but it's even worse because it tricks the men to come into it too, because it has Tom Brady in it. It's about football. Like, it's about it tricks you into thinking that it's going to be a movie for them. And while they're having the time of their lives, those husbands are slowly but surely thinking to themselves, "I wonder how much it would be to divorce my wife after making me sit through this garbage." This movie is abysmal. It is not funny. It is not creative whatsoever. The visuals look absolutely horrible. Time and space does not matter in here. There's not even a story in here. This is just a bunch of comedic set pieces that that's not even funny comedic set pieces. Like, this is the type of comedy that Mamma Mia was. This was in Sex and the City. This is the type of comedy that's inoffensive and completely goes against the purpose of comedy, which is misery. There's no misery in here, because if there's actually misery, then we'd actually have some comedy to work with here. And the attempts at comedy in here are just terrible. Like, this is a mess of a film on so many levels. It made me frustrated and mad that I came out of this movie. That is because I knew going into it, it probably wasn't going to be that good. But man, this really irked me. It irked me to the point where I really, kind of like with Creed 3, I didn't think I'd see a movie. Why I didn't think I'd see a movie better than Creed 3. I didn't think I was going to see a movie that was worse than 80 for Brady in 2023. I thought this was easily going to be the worst film of the year. But then June 16th happened, and that brings us to the number one worst movie of 2023, which I've talked about on here long enough, but I still have a lot to say about it, and that is, of course, The Flash. You know, I just want to say right off the bat that I don't hate DC whatsoever. My favorite superheroes of all time are Batman and Superman. There's been a lot of really good Batman and Superman movies. There's even been some films in the DCEU that I've actually liked. I liked Wonder Woman. I liked Aquaman. I liked Shazam. I liked the James Gunn Suicide Squad. I thought Wonder Woman 1984 was not as good as the original Wonder Woman, but it was still a ton of fun. I like Birds of Prey. I've nothing against the DCEU whatsoever. I get what they were trying to do. They wanted to make something to compete with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But just the way that they've done it in the last 10 years that they developed this, that's my biggest problem with the DCEU. They took a third of the time to put this together without any without really examining this and seeing if this was actually going to work. Most people forget that the Marvel Cinematic Universe took more than 10 years, probably almost 10 years to come together. They had to get the rights back from the different studios. They had to get people that they thought were going to actually put this together and actually put this idea that they had together. And they also had to wait and see how the audiences were going to examine these films. Like, when Iron Man first teased the possibility of Avengers in a movie, it was an idea. Like Nick Fury said, there was an idea to bring together a group of people. And they had to wait to see how this would pan out, because The Incredible Hulk was not the big financial hit like Iron Man was. Iron Man 2 was a big financial hit, but critic-wise, wasn't a big hit there. Thor and Captain America did decent enough that they continued on, and we got one of the greatest superhero movies of all time with the Avengers. And up until the pandemic, the MCU, for the most part, was doing pretty well. They had a lot of really good films, very few stinkers, and even some of the stinkers were not the worst thing they've made. But they at least took their time with it, and it paid off big time. The DCEU took 3 years make it to the first film. They saw the Man of Steel, which is a fine film, even though I don't like Henry Cavill as Superman. But they saw the success of that, and they said, now is our opportunity to do that. It's the next film we're gonna do, the Man of Steel sequel. It's gonna be featuring Batman in it, and then that eventually became its own separate film, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Not but a year and a half after that, they rushed these movies into development. Like, they were gonna do Batman v Superman, and then Suicide Squad, and then Wonder Woman, and then Aquaman, and then Shazam. There was going to be Cyborg. There was going to be a Flash film. There was going to be the Justice League two-parter. And then, as the time went on, it came crumbling down. And the Flash, I think, is the magnum opus for how bad this thing got, because not only does this serve as near the end of this train wreck of a ride that the DCEU has been, and the hopes for a brighter future with James Gunn coming in with DC Studios, which, the time I'm recording this, they actually just announced the new casting for Superman this week, and Superman and Lois, and I think that's right, and I'm really excited to see what they'll do there. But with the Flash, with everything that was going on behind the scenes, Ezra Miller's trouble with the law, like all the things that he had against him, the harassment allegations, the grooming allegations, the sexual assault allegations, the fact that they still went through with this movie is just amazing. Like, this movie just shows how little this regime at Warner Brothers under David Zaslav gives a F. I'm going to try my best not to swear on this, but there are so many bad words I want to say right now, because no movie has made me so mad at the way they tried to just cover everything about it than this movie did. I hate this movie. The reason why I hate this movie so much was because all the shady stuff was right out in the open. And the lazy attempts that this studio tried to do to hide it from the public was just, it's unbelievable, the levels they went to. I mentioned the accusations against Ezra Miller. God, I wish there was allegations against David Zaslav so he can have his job taken away from him quickly. But David Zaslav is also a main reason why the WB is in the dire situation that it is now. Canceling all these movies and projects that were pretty much done, and writing them off as tax write-offs for no real reason except to save a couple of bucks, and put all the money to this. This was supposed to be David Zaslav's welcome to the Hollywood moment. This was supposed to be the movie that defies his legacy. This is the film that's supposed to push him to the edge as the reason why he should still have a job at Warner Brothers. And the way he handled this was just it was just a disaster waiting to happen. It's like a snake oil salesman. He's like a snake oil salesman, honestly. He gives you these dreams and visions of what he wants this to be, and he says that, trust me, it'll work. Like, trust me, this is going to be one of the greatest new achievements. And it's like the Hollywood equivalent of Trust the Process for the Philadelphia 76ers. You know, Sam Hinkie's Trust the Process, and we all know how that turned out. And pretty much turned out the exact same way here. Like, let's just throw everything on this film that doesn't involve Ezra Miller. He doesn't even exist in here, so why is the movie even called The Flash then? Like, why didn't you just go for another title if you wanted to focus on anything but The Flash? Like, the advertising was more focused on what wasn't at the centerpiece of the film, of the title, which was The Flash. Like, we've got Batman's in here. Ben Affleck is back as Batman, and hey, Michael Keaton is back as Batman. Supergirl's in here. General Zod as well. You know, we've got those there. Don't worry about this thing. We're not going to bring up Ezra Miller whatsoever. We're actually going to leave him away from the marketing and the promotions for this, because we know he's going to get questions about his criminal past. But we just keep that our little secret. You really want to see Batman in this? You really want to see Michael Keaton as Batman? Well, you know what? That movie you canceled, Batgirl, was going to have Michael Keaton in it too. $90 million movie. They canceled that. And let me be honest with you. If you had actually put the money to market that film, you probably would have made a better profit than you're going to make with The Flash, which is none. But it gets better. Let's throw in a ton of celebrity praise on this film. Let's get Tom Cruise. Let's get Martin Scorsese. Let's get Stephen King. dump a dump trunk full of money in front of their houses and say, hey, can you do us a favor and give us a little bit of high praise for this film, because we really need this to sell to people, because we have problems behind the scenes that we can't let people know about. Oh, and it gets better too. David Zaslav and James Gunn, we're gonna hype this up so much that we're gonna call this one of the greatest superhero movies of all time. Like, it baffles me that James Gunn would say this. Like, I don't know if he was forced to say it or not, but man, if you think that this is one of the greatest superhero movies of all time and you thought Batgirl was bad, Batgirl's probably Citizen Kane compared to what this movie is. But more than likely, we're never going to see it now, unfortunately. So, but it gets better too. Rotten Tomatoes got good reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, even though let's ignore the fact that Warner Brothers owns 25% of Rotten Tomatoes as well, so they probably bought and paid them to give them good reviews. But we're not even going to use the good reviews that we got from Rotten Tomatoes. No. That'd be too much for us to show that this movie really is worth something. So we know what we're going to do. We're going to take reviews from Twitter. We're going to take reviews from social media and put it all over the film, because why would you want to hear what the critics have to say about a film? Let's get the social media people involved, because clearly they're the reason why the DCEU still has relevance, even though we don't want to admit that we actually use bots to make the Zack Snyder Justice League cut. We're going to overhype this to a point that we're going to tout the fact that this movie is set to make between $110 and $140 million domestically for one of the biggest summer movie openings of the year. Like, this film is going to be the magnum opus of the legacy that is the DCEU, and the end result was one of the most awful experiences I've ever had. Like, it's really taken me weeks since I've seen this film to fully realize how much of a disaster this movie is. Let's start with the obvious here. Yeah, there's good moments in the film, and I talked about that in the video I did for this. But at the same time, like I said, that's 10% of a film that's 90% just abysmal garbage. It's a bore at times when watching this film. And it would help if the visual effects were actually really good too, which they're not. But it's okay. It's okay, because the director of the film says the CGI is supposed to be bad. Get the F out of here, dude. Like, no. I'm sorry, I'm not using that as an excuse. That's not an excuse for you to use terrible, deep fake AI CGI garbage for these cameos that you have in here. Like, there's a scene in the film where Christopher Reeve and Helen Slater show up as Superman and Supergirl. This is supposed to be a heavy, emotional moment. You've got a legendary actor, Christopher Reeve, returning to the role of Superman. Of course, he's been dead for almost 20 years now, but this is a chance to bring him in here. We've seen how amazing the Marvel Cinematic Universe can handle the technology is when it comes to bringing back these characters in their younger forms, which has worked more times than it hasn't. But but not only that, you get a chance to have Helen Slater show up as Supergirl as well. And when they show up, it's the most abysmal CGI you will ever see. This moment that's supposed to be the emotional powerhouse of the film gets completely destroyed by the fact that they just did not care about making this look good whatsoever. And even then, they have a chance to really play with some stuff that never came to life, like the idea that Nicolas Cage was going to play Superman in Tim Burton's film from the 90s. Like, there's a scene where he fights a giant spider. This should be an incredible scene, and once again, it looks like he's not even there. It doesn't even look like it's actually Nicolas Cage. Like, it's asinine that they really thought that this was going to be something that people would go and see and actually buy into it. And the sad part is, a lot of people have bought into it. And that's what really sticks out with me, and why I put this as the worst movie of the year, because I'm trying to tell people this is a garbage film. Like, this is a film that you should not be praising this film for the few things that it actually did positively. You should be criticizing it more for the terrible CGI in here, which I've seen other CGI films that have CGI that's actually that's a mix of both good and bad, and all they ever talk about is how bad it is. Like after watching this, I own movies like The Lion King, Thor: Love and Thunder, Jurassic Park: World Dominion, those movies deserve an apology because they at least tried with the CGI. The Lion King didn't work all the way through because of the lack of emotions on their faces, but they were at least trying. They did not try with this movie whatsoever. And again, it's the people that say, "Oh, why can't you have any fun with this?" It's the same thing with Fast X. Why can't you have any fun with this? I mean, this is of course it's bad, but come on, it's a fun ride, really. Because I said that about Jurassic World Dominion last year and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, along with other movies that were fun films. And yet I got crap for saying that they were fun films. It was just like, no, they're terrible movies. Like, they were complete insults to their original to their original franchises and stories and yada yada yada. It's like, shut up. Like, after this movie, I never want to hear anyone tell me that I gave a movie too good of a review, because you people gave this movie too good of a review. I mean, like, I know I'm going on this rant here, but I can't help it, man. The more I think about this movie, the more I hate it. The more I despise it, the more I hate the fact that the studio pulled everything but the kitchen sink to try to save this movie, and it just fell on their ass big time. They're going to lose $300 million on this. Adding to the debt that they're already trying to cover by cutting everything off, of here, it's like, this is a disaster. This is a huge, huge disaster. Even some of the worst DC movies ever, Green Lantern, had better CGI than this piece of garbage did. And that was Green Lantern. Green Lantern. Like, think about that. Like I said, I'm going off on a rant here. I hate this movie so much. I've done more than enough videos talking about why I hate this movie so much. And I think the best way to really end this rant is basically paraphrasing what Roger Ebert felt when he saw the movie North. Because honestly, that's how I really feel about this film. I hated this movie. Hated this movie. Hated it. Hated every simpering, stupid, vacant audience insulting moment of this movie. Unquote. So yeah, needless to say, The Flash is the worst movie of 2023, and quite honestly, I don't know what else could top it. I really don't know what else could top it, but the next 6 months are going to try to do it, so all I can say is good luck. You've got some real competition ahead of you. And so that's why I decided to do the worst movies last, because I knew that rant was coming, and really, I don't have anything else more to say about The Flash that I haven't already said already. It's the worst movie of 2023, no question about it. And, like I said, it's going to be tough to top that. So those are my best and worst films of 2023 so far. That means the next 6 months, you've got some tasks to do. Find movies in there that I will not only really like, but will want to put in one of those in the best of list, and movies that I want to put in the worst of list for just being bad as they are. But yeah. Let me know your thoughts down below on what you think are the best and worst films of the year so far. I know there's going to be some interesting decisions being made about what people think are the best and worst movies of the year so far. Some people may agree with me, some people may disagree with me, but that's what the comment section is for. So let me know down below what you think. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. This was a ton of fun to make, by the way. This is something I usually like to do every 6 months. Is in terms of looking back at the year so far, figuring out what movies will more than likely make the bottom 10 list at the end of the year, or the top 10 list at the end of the year. And these are very fun to do. I look forward to do this every time. So, like I said, thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more videos like this type of video, go ahead and check out the playlist over on the corner here. And also subscribe to the brand new Reviewing Network Live channel. We're going to be putting out a weekly show starting in September. There will be more details on that particular channel. I hope you guys check that out. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time. And until then, as always, take care.